The rain poured relentlessly over Water 7, the heavy droplets crashing against the cobblestone streets like 1,000 tiny hammers. Nami wiped at her face, but the tears wouldn't stop. Not when she was staring at the one person she never expected to betray them. Robin stood among the agents of CP9, her expression colder than the steel of Zoro's blades. "Robin, what are you doing?" Nami screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. Robin didn't turn. She only tilted her head slightly, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "From this moment on, I have no connection to the Straw Hat Pirates." Zoro's hand tightened around his sword hilt. Sanji's cigarette fell from his lips, extinguished by the rain. Chopper clung to Nami's leg, his small body trembling, and Luffy's face was unreadable, his usual grin replaced by something far more serious. "You're lying," Luffy said, his voice low but firm. "Robin wouldn't betray us." For the briefest second, Robin's shoulders tensed. Then, without another word, she raised her hands. Dozens of pale arms sprouted from the Straw Hats' bodies, locking them in place with brutal efficiency. "This is my answer," she said, her voice as hollow as the void left behind. "Goodbye, Straw Hat Pirates." And just like that, she was gone, swallowed by the storm alongside CP9. Nami collapsed to her knees, the rain mixing with her tears. It didn't make sense. The Robin she knew, the woman who laughed with them, who shared stories under the stars, who treated Chopper like family, would never do this. "There's a reason," Nami whispered. "There has to be." Elsewhere in Water 7, Frankie lay battered and bruised, his body aching from the explosion that had nearly killed him. His family surrounded him, their faces etched with worrying. "Boss, you okay?" one of them asked. Frankie didn't answer. His mind was still replaying the words he'd overheard Spandam, that smug CP5 bastard, bragging about how he'd used Frankie's own weapons to frame Tom's workers. And worse, how he'd forced that woman, Robin, to cooperate. "She's just another victim," Frankie muttered, his mechanical fingers clenching into fists. The storm raged on, as if mourning what had been lost. That night, the remaining Straw Hats gathered in an abandoned warehouse, the air thick with tension. Luffy sat on a crate, his hat pulled low over his eyes. Zoro leaned against the wall, silent. Sanji chain-smoked, the glow of his cigarette the only light in the dim room. Chopper curled into a ball, sniffling. Nami paced, her mind racing. "We need to understand why Robin did this," she said finally. "She wouldn't just leave us." Luffy lifted his head. "Robin's our friend. Friends don't betray friends." The door creaked open, and in walked Iceberg, his body wrapped in bandages, followed by a winded Polly. "I heard you were looking for Nico, Robin," Iceberg said, his voice steady despite his injuries. Nami rushed forward. "You know something, don't you? Tell us." Iceberg sighed, lowering himself onto a crate. This wasn't betrayal. It was sacrifice. He told them everything, how Robin had come to him that night, not to kill him, but to warn him about CP9, how her eyes had been filled with a terror, so deep it chilled him to the bone. She said if she didn't cooperate, they'd activate a buster call. Iceberg explained. They'd wipe out Water 7 and kill all of you. The warehouse fell deathly silent. Nami's hands flew to her mouth. Chopper's tears dripped onto the floor. Sanji's cigarette snapped between his fingers. Zoro's eye opened, sharp as a blade. Luffy's fists shook at his sides. "A buster call," Nami whispered. "The same thing that destroyed Robin's home." Iceberg nodded. 20 years ago, Ohara was erased from history for studying the poneglyphs. Robin was the only survivor. She's been running from the world government ever since. "So she did this to protect us," Chopper whimpered. "Not just that," Iceberg said. "CP9 threatened to execute you all immediately if she refused. She chose to give herself up to save you." Luffy stood, his straw hat casting a shadow over his face. "Then we're getting her back." Iceberg shook his head. "It won't be easy. They're already on their way to Ennis. Lobby the island of no escape. No one's ever breached it. Luffy grinned, wide and fearless. We're the Straw Hat Pirates. We don't care about never. Zoro smirked. Sounds like a challenge. Sanji lit another cigarette. A lady went that far for us. There's no way I'm letting this slide. Nami wiped her eyes, determination hardening her gaze. We need a plan. The door burst open again, and in marched Frankie, his family at his back. Count me in, he declared. I've got my own score to settle with the world government. Luffy laughed, loud and bright. The more the merrier. As the night deepened, the group strategized. Frankie shared what he knew about CP9 and Spandam schemes. Nami mapped out their approach. Zoro and Sanji argued over who would fight which enemy. Chopper prepped every medicine he could think of. Only Luffy stayed quiet, staring out at the moon. Nami sat beside him. What are you thinking? She asked softly. Luffy was silent for a moment. Then, I'm thinking about how scared Robin must be right now. Nami blinked. She was always alone, Luffy continued. Then she found us, and now she's going back to that. Nami's vision blurred again. Yeah, it must hurt so much. Luffy turned to her, his grin as bright as the sun. So we'll go get her. And we'll tell her she doesn't have to be afraid anymore because we're here. By dawn, they were ready. Frankie had secured the blueprints for the sea train their fastest route to Eni's lobby. Luffy stood at the bow of the ship, his crew behind him. All right, next stop Eni's lobby. We're bringing Robin home. A chorus of cheers answered him. As the ship pulled away from Water 7, Nami watched the island shrink in the distance, her heart pounding with resolve. Hold on, Robin. We're coming for you. And this time, they wouldn't let her carry the weight alone.